to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast. We are back from an amazing conference last week through Predictive Index called Optima. And if you've been following along on our podcast this month, you've heard some amazing stories from Amwood Homes and how they have inspired their people to really perform at a high level by focusing on culture inside the organization. We also chatted this month a little bit about mental health and how important it is that we pay attention to those warning signs from our employees. And as we look at this inspiring individuals and what that looks like, it's not the same for every person. And so our guest with me on our podcast today is not a newbie to the show, but somebody that's actually been with us before, and it's Damon Clark. And Damon is another PI consultant with Talent Optimizers. And one of the things that we have learned over time is that we have to try and fail. And so much of that in that culture that we creates inspiration for ourselves and for others. So Damon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So how was Optima last week?
Well, after how many years? 2 years of being in my house, not having much interaction with anybody, it was absolutely unbelievable. So it was so nice to see all those familiar faces. You were one of them. We've worked together for over 2 years and pretty much on a weekly basis. And we've never met in person. So
right.
I got to, as in England, say, cut some shapes on the dance floor with you and go to all these amazing breakout sessions. So yeah, it was absolutely unbelievable.
My favorite was I can be very, very task focused. And I had a task that I was beelining towards. And I don't know what I was doing, but I was going into the main session. And all of a sudden you step in front of me. You're like, it's me. I'm like, what?
I know.
Oh, Damon, hi.
I was so excited to see you. And it was just like we were on a Zoom call. You're like, oh, hi.
I'm like, hang on one second. I'll be right back. Isn't it amazing how when we walk into something, the mindset that we have and the thoughts that we have about it will completely shape the experiences that we have?
Yeah, I took it seriously. Absolutely. I kind of really took it seriously as an investment in myself. I mean, it was such an amazing agenda of speakers. I could soak up all that knowledge and that's going to help me with my clients. So I approached that conference different from any other conference, and I'm glad I did. And
I think that goes back to kind of this theme that we have for the month, which is how do we inspire others to perform? And so much of it has to do with knowing who they are, right? So we just talked about, you and I are very extroverted. So we love this in-person thing, but yet we have individuals that are, very analytical and much more reserved, right? They are probably going to love the virtual conference. It is actually April 26th, which is 2 days before this podcast actually airs. But I think that you can still go get the tickets and the re-recording of that if that's something that you're looking for. But, knowing who a person is will have a significant impact on how to inspire them. And you've talked a lot about the speakers. And I don't know about you, but my favorite speaker over the conference was James Clear talking about atomic habits. And one of the quotes was, you don't rise to the goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Yeah, that was a highlight. I have a lot of highlights, but that resonates particularly with me.
Right, because these systems that we use every day, right? Like Predictive Index is a system that we use every day. And if we don't use that system correctly, we're going to hire the wrong people and, fail in what we're doing.
It's like having a gym membership and not turning up.
Right. Or turning up and doing the exercises incorrectly, right?
Or not utilizing a personal trainer to help you.
Right. Absolutely. So what were your key takeaways?
For me, it was Carmen Medina talking about your team secret weapon for rebels and eccentrics. We both work in behavioral science, particularly on predictive index. So within that terminology, I'm called a maverick, which is someone very comfortable with risk, speaking out, fast paced. And that really resonated with me because particularly in my early career, there were many jobs I definitely wasn't a fit for. And being stubborn and so competitive, instead of kind of reevaluating or having the tool set to understand that I wasn't hardwired to actually do that position, I kind of stuck at it, pushed through, and kind of sort of went through some struggles, basically working in areas that I just shouldn't have been in. So I really enjoyed that because she spoke about how, to turn those rebels and eccentrics into an advantage. And that kind of resonated with me a lot.
Some of the time you have to look at an individual and say, you are in the wrong role. Can we take and move you into a different role so that you have the ability to be fulfilled in your work? Or what does that path look like?
Yeah. And having that label for me has been a positive thing because I can look back and some of those roles where I knew I wasn't a fit and they didn't go so well, I can now say, oh, no wonder. I wasn't. It's like putting a left-hand person in a right-hand person's job. And that's okay. Right. So it's given me this like sense of relief to say to myself, I made mistakes. I wasn't hardwired to do that job, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. So it's funny how you get, you educate yourself and, you learn and develop and you can reflect back and it gives you a lot of peace of mind.
Right. Absolutely. And one of the speakers that I loved was J.R. Martinez. And one of the things that he talked about, and by the way, we will put links in the show notes to these. So if you're like, who are these people? We'll put these links in the show notes so that you can kind of follow along with them. But J.R. Martinez, really talked about how he had a label as a disabled veteran, but yet he didn't see himself as a disabled veteran. And I think one of the things that's really important is what are those labels that we put on ourselves and what are those labels others put on us? And are those the labels that we want, right? And so both you and I look at the Maverick label, based on a behavioral profile, and we both say, yeah, we both agree that that's who we are and it actually helps us to stand into and step into who we are in a much higher level. And that's inspiring, right? But one of those key things that I've learned over the last, 2.5 years with playing with PI and in my business is specifically ensuring that individuals, once they take the predictive index assessment or really with anything, is saying, does this fit? And do you believe that this is an accurate reflection of who you are? And if not, what would that look like for you? Because that way you're connecting with the individual on a personal level.
Yeah. And you're not doing any favors to anybody by putting someone in the wrong seat. No. And now we can have those conversations. We can behaviorally assess what a role needs to be successful and map that candidate to that role. And maybe there is going to be a stretch behaviorally. And at least we know that going into a relationship so we can put some tools and processes in place to support that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And, when I ask you the question, Damon, like, what inspires you to perform at your best? What do you come up with?
That's a really good question. What inspires me? So I'm very stubborn and competitive. So I'm even at Christmas, I'm not allowed to play Hungry Hippos with the children because I take it too seriously. So yeah, I'm hardwired to go above and beyond because I just like being successful and it's a real motivator for me. And there's some blind spots to that. I can be very kind of laser focused and not accommodating to other people sometimes in my quest for, success. But going back to the question, what inspires? So what's the question again? Let me just make sure I'm not going too far off track in Maverick.
Yeah. So what inspires you to perform at your highest level?
Yeah. Competitiveness and how I love helping people and I love making a difference. And also going back onto some of the themes we've been discussing is I never realized that my creativity and imagination was my strength. I never associated that as a strength. I was in corporate and I wanted to be like everyone else because I thought that's what would make me successful. So I wanted to be more analytical. I wanted to be more, patient. And I kind of repressed my natural power of that creativity and that imagination, but now no longer. So, and that's what I enjoy doing, and that's what I'm doing now. So it's taken me 45 odd years to figure this out and the help of, behavioral assessments, but I'm getting there.
That's amazing. And I think that also goes to when we create our teams and what our teams look like. We need individuals that are very analytical on our teams, but we don't need the whole entire team to be analytical. We need kind of, the renegades and, the very, very creative folks on our team, but we also need the folks that are detail oriented and are actually going to get the thing 100% of the way done. So, when we create our teams, we need to make sure we don't hire individuals all like us, because we're going to be frustrated that we don't get to those business outcomes. So that inspiration is also, man, when I'm a part of this team where everything is clicking, we can move forward so much faster.
And that's where friction comes from typically,
right?
Because, when you've got those opposite behaviors, whether it's how we deal with risk, how we make decisions, when you've got those polar opposite, that normally manifests itself into friction. And actually, it should be a complementary strength, should be a superpower. And the example I often use there is a Star Trek example. I'm so sorry for the non-Trekkies, but the story arc between Captain Kirk and Spock in the beginning, they start off not liking each other. And then in time, they realize their differences are their greatest strength. And it is so true. And now we have the ability to really understand that and kind of help individuals and teams become stronger through their differences, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I do too. I love that. And so much of that goes into our strengths through our differences. And that allows us to actually be happy at work. One of the questions Mike Zani posed during the conference was, what would increase your happiness at work? And that links directly into what that inspiration is. And so I think that that's a challenge that I have. It's definitely something that we're going to do with our team as a whole, is what does increase that happiness at work. And I threw it in our team's chat, and one of our team members came back and she just said, I want to know that I'm doing a good job. I want that positive reinforcement. Another said, hey, I want to have meaningful work. And I'm like, okay, so what does meaningful work look like to you? Because what it means to you may be something completely different than it means to me.
So yeah, I'm very passionate about particularly this area, because we used to say, and I think I stole this off you actually, so I'm stealing your quotes now. So the golden rule is treat others how you'd like to be treated. And that was for default for many years. But now we got the ability the platinum rule. Did I steal this off you? I think so.
It's something I say all the time, right? The golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. The platinum rule is treat others the way they want to be treated.
And so now we can do that, because we've got the tool sets to behaviorally assess and have those conversations to understand how we can do that. And it's a game changer. It really is.
Yes, it is. It's
huge.
And
if we relate that back to the first part of the conversations around doing jobs where I was useless at, I was actually, this will make you laugh. So I was a product manager of EMEA for Acer laptops. And so I had to work with the factories in China, and I used to spend the whole day in spreadsheets. And you imagine how comfortable I was with looking at detail, checking numbers, doing forecasts. I couldn't have been doing a more job which was just more opposite from my natural behavioral ability. So yeah, now we've got the ability to understand that and avoid that from happening.
So the takeaway that I'm hearing is make sure that you don't turn yourself or others into a pretzel, because you're going to hate life.
Yeah, and there's no need to do that anymore.
Right.
Now we're in a position where that's no excuse for it to happen. And that's going back to predictive index. Main kind of value is better work, better world. And
right.
That's why I believe both me and you are in these seats now, working with organizations to optimize talent.
Right. And boy, is it fun, right? When you can see some of those key results. And by the way, if you want to hear two stories, both from a manager perspective and an employee perspective, just go back a couple episodes on the podcast and you'll hear two of those. And so, Damon, what is a key takeaway that you have for, our managers or executives listening in today?
I think the advantage we can bring to the table is that often consultants have that broader experience. So we get the amazing ability to dip into organizations and work for organizations and not only educate them, but also learn. And so our time's fully invested in gaining that experience, working with organizations like Predictive Index to learn about behavioral science, and also develop kind of our own methodologies to help organizations thrive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, so that kind of goes to the takeaway that I had for our executives listening in, is that you fall to the level of the systems that you have. And, it's not just the level of systems, but it's also how you utilize those systems. And so, do you have the right systems in place to make life easy so that individuals truly can be inspired in the work that they're doing? And a system is not inspiring. It's the output and the outcome of how that system helps you to be successful.
And also that system, I mean, nowadays, particularly in the field we work in, if we zoom back 2 or 3 years ago, 5 years ago, it was a totally different industry. So we've got the ability to use systems and data to manage people more effectively.
Right.
And it's not just for systems, it's also for facilitation, it's for consulting experience, but also the technology out there at the moment is fantastic. So yeah, it's great to be part of this industry and be able to kind of make those changes.
Absolutely. And a key takeaway for our HR folks listening in today.
Oh, yeah. So HR is a wonderful place to be at the moment because, there's a growth in terms of what HR can encompass. If you think back to the old days, HR was to mitigate risk. Now, there's many hats HR has to wear, and it's more strategic. It's more DI, it's more culture, and they are just wonderful things to be a part of. So I think HR's seeing a resurgence now, and the stuff they're involved with are just wonderfully amazing areas to be in right now.
Absolutely. And something you said is when we talk about diversity and equity and those things, it's also looking at that and ensuring we're not putting labels on folks. And that was one of those key lessons, again, from J.R. Martinez, is when you put labels on people, you stop them from, moving forward, right? And so ensuring that we're moving individuals forward the way that they want to be moved forward, but that we're embracing where we're at and how we're moving forward, and that connection with people is going to get you so much further than anything else. And what do they need and how do we do that? And coupling that with those systems that you have. I love it. So thank you so much for joining us and doing a quick recap of the Optima conference that was in Boston last week. And if you didn't catch it and you want to catch the virtual conference, I know that that's available on the Optima website as well.
Yeah, go check it out. I mean, if you're in talent, if you're in HR, if you're in coaching and leadership, I think it's probably the number one conference to go to, and the return on investment is beyond imaginable for me. So I took some of my team because it's worthwhile. So yeah, check out the Optima. I think it's optimaconference.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Damon. Have a great rest of your day.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.